And so what was it like going to teach at Grace Church School?
Well, it was really nice because I was used to a corporate environment, I guess. Because of my time that I had done in a previous job at HBO. I was a technical manager. It was a whole other career. And I was very concerned that I reported to the right people, or what's the org structure, and they were just like, well, just you have colleagues and you can discuss things with them, and we're not going to make you do anything. You can talk to us. It's a very friendly environment. I mean, there were serious expectations, like and everyone took their jobs very seriously, but there really was a sense of belonging and community. They were very that was that was very welcoming, actually, and very energizing, I will say, because I wasn't used to that. I didn't expect it. And so I would remain aloof from it, at the beginning, like, what are these people? Why are they always smiling at me? Like, what's going on? Like, I don't know why. But gradually you loosen up, and it was kind of corny, but I would kind of go along with it. And
Yeah, it's a good kind of corny.
yeah. And it did actually, I warmed up a little bit. I did feel like I was a part of things, and I was able to sort of transmit that to others too.
And so what happened over time?
It was a very gradual change that, I would say, well, within the first 3 years, one of the tenets of our school was that every employee and every faculty and staff member had to attend a seminar called Undoing Racism.
Mm-hmm. That was your HR department, was it, or who
Yeah,
instituted
it was.
that
It
program?
was it was a mandate from the dean of faculty at the time, and
That was a requirement.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and so I went to that, and that was a very interesting experience.
It's hard to, what would you say, refuse a call to anti-racism.
Sure,
I mean, who
no, I
would do
mean,
that?
what kind of monster? Yeah, and I went into it, and I actually felt energized, and I was converted. I had a sort of, I am white and I'm privileged, and you're right, we need to take care of this. And there were people in a circle, and people of all different races and backgrounds, and it was facilitated. And later I looked back on it, and I realized sort of how they did it. They did it in a very interesting, seductive way.
And what way was that?
Well, as I recall, they started out. Well, it was sort of two parts. The first part was the history since the slave ships landed on American soil, and then throughout time leading up to the present. And then they focused, for the second half of the session, they focused on how to help a community that has been shaped by all of this. And very early in the session, they said, we want you to withhold any judgment of anyone's choice or agency. Anyone, any of the minority Black populations that we're talking about here. We want you to simply bracket or put, withhold any analysis of the choices that people make, because that will often lead to a misunderstanding or insensitivity towards what's happening.
And so why do you focus on that specifically, that issue specifically?
Well, because it was, as they retold the history and as they talk about the present circumstances, they never actually revisited that. So you're constantly focused on the oppressed population in terms of what is acting upon it, acting upon those individuals. And to me, that's like denying a certain agency, right? But they never actually lifted the blinders off at the end. Like they would put everyone sort of acknowledged that they were going to go along with this at the beginning. And I was like, really? We're going to do that? We're going to treat people as less than human? Well, okay, it must be like a temporary thing.
And why did you see that as treating them as less than human? I mean, I presume that the people on the other side of the fence would say, well, we're all caught like corks on the sea in the throes of vast social movements over which we have little or no control. And who are you to cast judgment on people who have been relatively deprived in that regard compared to you? it's possible to make a fairly stringent moral case that that's the appropriate mode of behavior, but there was something in you that objected to that, and you remember that now.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that you said that you were energized by this and pulled in by it. And why do you think it caught you as well?
Well, it was a social thing, right? It's the people in a circle, and people are talking about their experiences, and people are saying, as a Black person, this has happened to me. And at one point they actually, and it's empathy, right? You care about people. You feel, if you're sitting face to face with someone, of course I'm going to be sympathetic and empathetic, and people are narrating, but the problem, I think, is generalizing that to groups, and, getting you to make a different set of assumptions about those groups based on a sort of, selective way that the empathy is leveraged, I would say.
Well, there's also the implicit, what would you say? The implicit perceptual and categorical structure that comes along with it, which is the a priori assumption that the appropriate classification for human beings is by group.
Yeah.
And that's so implicit, but so pervasive that it, in some sense, never needs to be stated. And as soon as you assume that the group level is the appropriate level, then you're bound to minimize or even forbid discussion of such things as individual agency. So there's something, if you believe in individual agency, there's something
I guess
pernicious about that.
Yeah. And I don't, I remember at one point they said, what do you like about being white? That was sort of a gotcha question that they asked the white people.
How did you answer that?
Well,
I'm trying to think of how some of these questions seem to come up in our society right now that no one's ever asked, like, well, justify marriage. It's like, well, wait a sec. I don't know how to justify it. We just sort of took that for granted, and maybe that was appropriate.
Right.
And so it's very hard when you're put on the spot like that. Okay, so you're white. What's so great about that, as far as you're concerned?
Well, I kind of knew what they were expecting, so I kind of tried to play games with it a little bit, because what they were trying to do is they're trying to go through the embarrassment of saying, well, there's nothing special about me being white. There's nothing special. But I was just like, no, it's great. I walk into a room and everyone pays attention to me and everyone thinks I'm an expert. And I said it because I knew that it's kind of what they wanted. But, I don't usually feel that way, but I knew that's kind of what they wanted. But then I said it too, proudly, and then I made some other people upset. Like, some people sounds like you really, really like being white. And I said, well, I'm not, that's just how I've been socialized. And then it was turned into kind of an argument. And then the facilitator had to defend me, because I actually had told him what he wanted to hear. And it turned into kind of a bit of a difficult moment. So I had to say that it was good to be white, but not be too happy about it.